Okay, so let's resume the session. Now we are going to focus on troubleshooting Z- ZTNA issues, ZTNA connector related problems. So, first topic of troubleshooting is the connector onboarding related issues. So, connector doesn't connect to the control plane. That indicates that the orchestration, the onboarding, the connector, and then the connector um, enabling the users to connect to the private apps, nothing is going to work. So this is usually the first time you're deploying a connector in an environment. There'll be a lot of challenges from the virtualization hypervisor or the cloud environment where it's getting deployed, and then you need to learn what IP address to which the ZTNA connector is going to anchor back to Prism Access. Ensure that policies are configured in the network to allow connection initiated from the connector. Always the tunnel connection, the IPsec connection is initiated from the connector towards Prism access, not the other way around. And then there could be physical problems, there could be name resolution problems, there could be firewall blocking issues. So all these are related to getting the connector onboarded. So once you determine all the challenges associated with this process, with the first deployment, then the subsequent connectors, it becomes easy as you understand from an organization perspective what to allow and what not to allow, and how to facilitate what all connections initiated from the connector are permitted towards the external facing internet, as well as within the the infrastructure itself, while for connecting to the specific private apps. Okay, so I've just listed down the most common problems which typically happen during the first time deployment. Number one, the first problem is the interface. The internet interface is down. Basically, the connectors has been deployed by the admin in the hypervisor. Or usually, this is a problem in when onboarding a connector in a data center. The port one is the port for the internet in one arm as well as in two arm remains down. It doesn't come up. Okay. Since this connector is not onboarded, you have the option of connecting to the connector with the default credentials, and then looking into firing some commands within the connector and say, understand what is the status. So whatever commands I shared in the tech support can be applied directly by yourself on the toolkit. Since the connector is not onboarded, you don't have that option to do it from Strata Cloud Manager. You can do it in the toolkit as the connector is yet to be onboarded. Okay. Then the ARP entries for the internet gateway is not available. There's no internet reachability, unable to resolve the PA controller IP, controller FQDNs. I just given a sample here. Subsequently, I'll give you a document link which has all the troubleshooting information related to onboarding, documented with regards to the FQDNs you need to permit in your network, the port numbers you need to allow for these FQDNs, the specific IP address which needs to be permitted in the upstream firewall through which the internet connection, through the internet connection of the connector, where the connections will be initiated and connected to towards the PA controller. It's all well documented. I will give you the links are in this slide deck, as well as I will show you the document and explain to you how to read that document. Okay, so the next one is the connector is stuck in booting. So this is a very corner case, but sometimes it happens. The connector, in especially in uh, KVM or ESX environment, it's stuck in booting. You don't see anything beyond booting, so you don't know what's going on inside the connector because you cannot log in, and it is not onboarded yet. So we'll look into that topic also. The token key expired, as I mentioned yesterday. It's only valid for 72 hours. If you do not deploy a connector within the 72 hours, you need to regenerate the token key by creating a new connector, and you need to discard this VM and deploy a new VM because you already used this token key in the template. It's best just to generate a new one because this some people, some of the customers ask to extend the validity, but it's not possible. It's not feasible. 72 hours is its timeline from the point you generate to complete your deployment. You might have challenges like the above problems listed down here, but you should find a way it cannot be utilized after 72 hours. Okay. Some Another problem is some of the old hypervisors do not support the following instruction set, which causes the flow controller within the ZTNA connector to be stuck in fetal state. And when the flow controller is not operational, the device will not be able to perform any data plane task, any forwarding of traffic by the connector. So it's essential that the hypervisor platform, whichever version you're using, support the processor and the software version of the hypervisor supports passing these instruction set to the virtual machine. This is something VM admin or the virtualization platform team that manages will be able to understand better. And but as the connector, from the connector perspective, we require these instruction set to be enabled for it to function. Okay, so now the onboarding issues which I specifically mentioned, if you look at the screenshots here, um, okay, so this is the CLI. Once I log in into the connector with the default credentials, I see there are no operational interfaces. So if you look at this, beyond claim certificate, there is no operational interface, which indicates that the interface is down. That's the first symptom. So if you look at one of the previous dump overviews I shown, you will see the interface like over here. If you, I think this is not here yet. Okay, so you will have an operational interface, and then below that you will have the interface listed out. Okay, so here I don't see that. So that's the first sign that the physical interface is not working. Secondly, when I run this command dump interface status, I see unknown, and I don't see this interface up or operational. Okay, so this is the interface issue. When I look at the arc table, I see no entries in the arc table, so which means I'm not able to resolve the default gateway configured to my interface. I don't have any internet reachability. When I ping towards the Google DNS server, I have no replies coming in. So these are the commands which we can use. If you notice, we need to specify the interface here. We have a ping command with the interface number and the destination IP. So inspect system map, you can apply a filter, or you can see all the interfaces. Equal to all is all interface equal to one, will specifically look for the internet interface. And same applies to the status. You can apply filter on the specific interface you're looking for. So these commands help you understand that, okay, we have layer 2 and layer 3 issues. We need to fix this. We need to find out why the virtual machine VM ZTNA connector is not able to connect to the VM hypervisor and have these things operational. What I shown yesterday was what is expected, what's the default behavior. But at some kind of environments where the VM is being provisioned by a team, and they have put some restriction on it, or they have not enabled some specific parameters, uh, these problems can happen. Or there's a firewall in transit which is blocking the traffic. We need to determine within the environment what is causing this. So when you spin up a machine, all these are expected to work by default. But when you have a problem, these are the possible issues we can have, and this is how to identify those issues and then try to solve the problem. Okay. So the next one is the control plane. For the control plane down could be DNS resolution issue for the locator IP. The PA controller FQDN must be the connector must be able to resolve through its configured DNS server. So if I do an NS lookup, if I cannot resolve it, then I'm not able. Then I will never be able to connect to the locator, and the ZTNA controller connector will never be onboarded. It will be stuck in this state. So name resolution problem is very important. If you not cannot resolve these FQDNs, we'll have a problem. Now the list of FQDNs it needs to resolve, and if you're configuring a local DNS server, it must be able to resolve them, or it must have configuration to be ability to resolve these FQDNs. Otherwise, we will not be able to connect to the PA controller, and then the onboarding will not progress beyond that. Okay. So next one is so when it is working, when the DNS server is working, right, you will be having a proper response like this. So this slide deck showed you when it is not working. These snapshots were taken because it's a little bit challenging to reproduce and show you this problem. So what I've done is from from my past issues, right? I have tried to compile this so that it can be a reference for you to fire these commands and to diagnose the problem when you're having such issues during the onboarding. So here, if you look at the three commands over here, NSLOOKUP, this is a filter on the interface config to determine what is the DNS server you're configured, and then to use a dig command with the DNS server as your address, name resolver, and the FQDN to see whether it's getting any response over there. So with this, you will understand if there's any name resolution issue within the from when the connector is trying to resolve it, and then you need to fix it, whichever means is possible. You need to work with your DNS team and solve it, or you need to change your DNS to an alternate DNS server that can resolve it. Same applies to the FQDN targets. The local DNS server and the NS lookup within the connector should be able to resolve it. Now, once the onboarding is done, you don't have access to CLI. You can use the SCM NS lookup uh, to test it out, like how we showed in the before the break. I showed you the tools that there's NS lookup. You can test the FQDN from there. That is the name resolution from the connector to the app server. Okay, so the next one is, while the name resolution is working, you get a proper IP address shown here, and then when the connector is trying to connect to P controller and getting the certificates, you will see the first connection, the MRL connection, the control plane connection come up. And then this is a TCP ping command. While you're onboarding and you're having challenges, you can run this command on the interface to an FQDN and a specific port and verify that you have layer 4 reachability. Okay, so you can connect to this FQD. You're able to resolve it. You're able to connect at 443. You're supposed to be good to go with regards to the PA controller connection from the connector. Okay, and then lastly, the ARC table will have an entry for the default gateway, and which indicates that layer 2 is fine. So layer 2, layer 3, layer 4, everything seems to be fine. And then what is expected is the device to come up online and then connect to the controller. And once it is connected, the onboarding will be orchestrated, and it's an automated process without requiring you to do anything manually. But until you reach that point, these are the challenges you can have, and these are the tools available from the CLI for you to determine the problem and then accordingly troubleshoot it. Okay, next thing is bouncing the interface. Sometimes you may need to bounce your interface to refresh the IP address or refresh the DNS change coming from the DHCP server, or your DHCP server may not be publishing, leasing an IP to the connector during the initial onboarding. Then you can use this debug bounce one, the interface number. One is nothing but the interface ID. It is fully tab completion supported. So as you type the commands, you need any help, you can use the tab key. Now, this is all done from the console, and you have the credentials available in the tech doc for the default login. With that, you can fully run all these commands and troubleshoot yourself. Okay. So this is to enable you to better understand what's going on inside the connector and solve environment related issues with the uh, right person who's right component of the problem to be addressed, whether it's a DNS or security policy or anything that is related to causing the connector not to get onboarded. Okay, so here if you see the interface is up after the bounce. Initially, before the bounce, the interface was down, and then after the bounce, the interface came up. This is what this snapshot is trying to explain. Okay, and you can see that just within a second back, the interface came up. It just usually takes few seconds for the interface to be the admin down and admin up. So this is a very very useful command for bouncing the interface from the connector itself. The next last one is the most important logs, which are related to the PA controller connection, which is the MRL agent logs. So if you have a problem and you need not necessarily understand what's written inside these logs, because it's not in plain English, you can use a party session to connect to the console or to the connector, and then run it on capture the session logs and try to do a tail of this log and then share it to the that support ticket for helping you with the PA controller connection. That this will indicate to you what the problem is. But prior to going to this level, going inside the MRL agent and seeing the logs, try to address the layer 2, layer 3, layer 4, all the issues which we discussed in the previous slide, and then we'll be in a better position to troubleshoot. Otherwise, if we have dependency on others, right? Like for somebody from the DNS team needs to solve the name resolution issue, somebody from the security team needs to well, they'll have a process to enable these FQDNs through from initiated from the connector towards this destination to be permitted in the firewall logs. All these need to be planned accordingly. Okay, so this is the tail command. So once you run it, it'll generate the logs on the screen, and then you can take a screenshot, or you can, if you have an ability to connect to the serial console, you can capture it in a file and share it. Okay, so in this is a last option resort, option of last resort. You have exhausted everything. You verified the layer 2 is fine, layer 3 is fine. You have gateway, you have MAC address for the gateway, you have reachability towards the internet, you have layer 4 connectivity towards the PA controller, but still the controller the connector remains down. In that instance, you can use this command to restart some specific services. It is the default user credential can execute this operation. You just need to follow this command: debug process restart and the name of the process. These are the two processes related to the connector establishing connection with the PA controller. And then you can verify that process has restarted by looking at the uptime. So if you see this particular daemon was running for the last 30 minutes, but these two were just recently restarted 1 minute 37 seconds back. And lastly, this is a very useful command to check the controller reachability from a specific interface. So it will indicate the device is connected to the controller, which means it has successfully managed to have all the necessary configuration and reachability to connect to the controller. And it will just take few more minutes for after this step, for the connector to be onboarded with the Prism Access and then start functioning. So these are all the hiccups, initial hiccups when you deploy a connector you might face. And usually it is during the first instance of deployment, which is a learning journey to, to understand how to enable the connector get plugged into the environment, which is your data center or your cloud environment, and allowing it to uh, have all the required connections, to bring it to function and execute its configuration and allow access for the users to connect to private apps through this ZTNA connector. Okay, so these are the issues related to onboarding. The tech docs related to this ZTNA connector I have listed down here. The first one is a troubleshooting document. Second one is the requirement and guidelines. Third one is monitoring ZTNA connector. The last one is the Prisma Access admin guide. So I will open up these docs. I have these docs opened up already. So over here in the requirements guideline, if you navigate to this doc, this links are available in the slide deck. The slide deck will be shared with you. So if you go navigate this document to, these are the specifications for the ZTNA connector, which you need to make sure uh, you're following when you're deploying the connector in a virtual environment, okay, or in the cloud. So these are the standards. These are the number of CPUs, the memory, and the disk size. If, for example, you have configured only 4 GB of memory, the connector may not work, or connector may not boot up. Connector would not function. Okay, so you need to honor this specification defined in this document. Keep monitoring this document continuously, as these variables might change in future. But given this is a very useful and a document link in tech docs for you to determine what you need to size, how you need to size your connector virtual machine. From the network requirements perspective, we have over here the IP address and FQDNs to allow for ZTNA connector. So these are the list of all the FQDNs and the NTP and DNS server which you need to allow in your upstream firewall from the internet interface of the connector towards these destinations and IP addresses. So if you are blocking all these things, you may have a problem to have the connection with the PA controller. So this direction, the which port, source interface, and internet protocol you need to allow And this is more of a single arm deployment where both uh, the inbound traffic as well as outbound traffic originate from the connector, and you need to have both WAN and LAN ports in two arm connector, allowing these destinations. Okay, you refer to this document. You have any queries, you can raise it to a ticket if required, but it's quite self-explanatory. Very important for you to allow these URLs and FQDNs, and the port number is also mentioned over here. Okay, so this is with regards to the firewall configuration in the environment where the ZTNA connector is deployed. Okay, and then we have the specification for the connector and other useful information. But the key information over here is the list of IP address and FQDNs to allow for ZTNA connectors. So very commonly asked question. It's well documented in this one. The next one is the troubleshooting ZTNA connector. Okay, so this is specific to onboarding. The whatever points we discussed just now is covered in detail over here, and those commands which I have shown here, the same thing has been mentioned. So you can run through this document. You have the default password here. You have all the necessary information to help you to get out or to move forward with your onboarding issues. And what I've given in the slide deck is basically a summary of what is here, and it is quite self-explanatory, and all the commands we discussed is listed down here with a proper explanation. Okay, so this is about the troubleshooting the onboarding issues. You can try this document as well as the requirement document. This should solve majority of your onboarding related stuff.